Hey everybody, excited to talk to you today about component libraries for modern themes within Power Apps. So we're going to spend some time in this video looking over what exactly modern themes are, how they could be utilized in a component library so that those themes could be used across multiple apps, not just one. All right, let's get into it. My name is David Warner. I am an MVP with Microsoft Certified Trainer, work with Quizzitive, and do a ton in the community. Love working with each and every one of you. So we'd love to collaborate with you. Reach out if you'd like to connect. All right, so what's our agenda for today? We're going to talk about mastering reusability with component libraries, specifically within a modern theme. So we'll go over a quick review of what component libraries are. Then we'll talk about what Power Apps modern themes are, go over a little bit of that, come up with a global theme use case, where and why we might want to use it. And then we'll talk about some advanced component library opportunities that we'll look into in future videos. So what exactly is a component library? Well, it is a Power App solution that allows you to import functionality, controls, code, etc. into multiple apps. So imagine if you could build something like, I don't know, an About Us screen, or hey, great, a modern theme palette that could be created once and then imported into multiple apps. It will maintain and ensure consistency, allows you to simplify updates. You can notify others when changes occur. So it's really, really cool. We'll take a look and see how that works. So if you combine that with what is modern themes, well, again, these modern themes provide alignment with brands that are maybe built into your organization. They support modern controls, they've got accessibility, but specifically when you combine them with modern or component libraries, you're able to ensure a consistent user experience. So what's our use case for this? Well, we've got a modern theme use case. So we're going to be able to have all apps share a single unified theme, right, which reduces discrepancies. And then when we need to update those themes, well, we only need to do it once, and then all the apps will inherit those changes. It allows us to add additional themes, which we'll see in our example today. So let's dive into it. All right, so here we are inside of Power Apps. Now I'm just using a very simple little app that has nothing more than a modern button and a classic button. And I'm showing both because we're going to find that there's some differences between how a modern button and a classic button, or these modern controls and classic controls, react to a modern theme, just some discrepancies and not perfect parity yet. So we want to see what the differences are. But first things first, if we want to use modern themes, how do we do that? Well, you need to turn them on in settings. They're not on by default. So if you come down to your settings down here, and you select that and you go to updates, modern controls and themes. Now I've got it turned on for this because I've got some things already set up for us to take a look at. But this is the first thing that you need to do. You want to add modern controls and themes, turn it on so you've got access to these controls. Now once you do that, depending on the layout, some of these things have changed over time. If you come over to the ellipses, you can see that there's an option here called themes. And that gives you access to those modern themes. So when I click on it, you can see a few that I've already selected. Some of these that are there by default, you'll likely see out of the box, Power Apps and Teams, and there's some other colors here. I've added some that we're going to use for purposes of the demo today. So it's pretty cool. If you were to click in there and I were to click across these, you'll see that my modern button and my classic button here, they are going to change colors. And so they're automatically inheriting these themes, which are super, super slick. But then you can add a theme. So you're able to come in and create your own theme. You can give it a name, you can identify a font. There's some other properties here that apply to how the buttons and the controls react. You're able to come around here, and of course I'm a big fan of purple and orange, right? So I can come in here and you can see it generates a palette. So it goes all the way from darker 70 down to primary color. And then it goes from lighter 10 to lighter 80. And what's nice is it gives you a little description. This is a fairly newer functionality. It gives you a little description of exactly what this color is being used for, right? So here I'm on lighter 80, it says near white background surfaces and placeholders. Now you can also see a preview. So if you expand this little drop down, it shows you how these things react, right? So you're able to hover over them. You see there's just a slight difference in color change there. You can see things occurring as you hover over it. But what's really been cool is in each of these individual palettes, I did a video on how to access this information before we could individually assign each of these. But now you can. So if I wanted to change, say, my darker palette to maybe a two-tone color like we see over here. Now I've created some two-tones that we'll take a look at in a moment, but if I want to change those, I can. So I just click on darker 10, it brings up a different color palette window. And then I can say I want to go in and adjust that. And now I'm choosing an orange. And when I do that, it now changes to darker 10. And because darker 10 says, hey, that's pressed states, active borders, background hover, and focus effects. So now when I hover over some of these items, notice what's happening. I get a two-tone effect, which is pretty cool, right? So I've got that two-tone effect, and you're able to see exactly the changes you've made. You get that little dot there at this present time that represents that is a custom color. It's not being assigned automatically by the palette by me just simply choosing a single color up here. I've changed it, and so now I know that is something that is unique. Okay. Now I've already got a couple of custom multi-theme or multicolor themes created here that I'm going to use. So I'm just going to cancel out of this. And then let me show you what else I've done in this app is I've got a modern theme info screen that I've added. What this does is it actually outputs the JSON property, because what's happening when we use this app and a theme is on the actual app, there's a theme property that we can attach to or that we can populate. And when you choose a theme, notice that it says Power Apps theme. If I come over to my themes and I start going between them, you'll notice that Teams theme is now selected. I've selected the Teams theme. Well, if I select one of my custom ones, I've got a Warner Digital purple here. We see I'm able to access that, and it just gives it in string, right? So it wraps it in quotes, so it knows that I'm working with that. And I've also output onto this control what the actual JSON is, because each of these themes is using some JSON properties. So we can see the darker 10 here all the way down to the lighter 80. We've also got a primary color, a primary foreground, our font, and then our name. Now this is actually being exported, right? So it is JSON there, and I can grab this and we'll use this in a moment here in our component library. We'll talk about that in a moment. So I'm able to access the exact properties and the exact value behind that property, which is pretty cool, but it doesn't really give it to you right away. I had to create this theme or this component or control and export the value of our app theme to be able to take advantage of it. All right, so if I go to that text here, you simply see I just said substitute JSON app.theme because the app and the theme property is accessible. So then I'm exporting that for me to be able to capture the exact value of the JSON that is representing each of these individual themes. So now what we've got is I'm going to close this up and I'm going to come back to my primary main screen here. And I've got my buttons, right? So when I hold down my Alt key to emulate me clicking, you can see that I've got that two-tone, right? That's kind of cool. I don't have it on the modern button. What I've done is when I go into my themes, I'm selecting a Warner Digital 2-color, right? So if I go in and edit that, you can see what I've done is I've gone into each of the individual darker states. And I've associated a little darker 70 to darker 10, varying spectrum of oranges that gives me this modern or two-tone experience, right? So I like that. I think it's kind of cool. What's happening though is that in the modern experience, if I just put this into play, I get the experience on the classic buttons as I want. That's what I want to have happen. But on the modern button, I'm not quite getting that, right? So they're not completely the same yet, but I do have control over certain things. So for example, on this classic button, if I go on to the hover fill, that's what's actually adjusting that, right? So app.theme.colors, so I'm able to access that app object along with the theme property, and then I'm going all the way down to colors, darker 10. I'm able to take advantage of accessing those colors. With the modern, you don't have that. You don't have those hover properties. They're not here. It's not here yet. Hopefully they'll add it, but just be aware of that. Something to be aware of as you're playing with the new modern controls and the classic buttons and maybe different themes and doing a two-tone theme. I like it. I like having a two-tone theme and having the ability to do that. But just be aware that in some cases, modern and classic don't have exact parity yet. Okay, cool. So now we've got a better understanding of exactly how our themes work how they're associated to the app as app object, and then we can access the properties as I have here on my classic button and the hover fill. I'm able to access the properties of each of those, right? So if I wanted to prescriptively get into the individual orange colors, I could, and I can do that if I wanted to. I could also change the lighter colors and make those a different color. So you could kind of come up with a 3-color or multicolor if you wanted to. It gets more complex, obviously, but the point is you've got that access. But let's talk about scope, right? What we found, obviously, is that this is scoped to the individual app. When I create these here, if I go create a new app, it's not going to be available to me. I'd have to create this new theme in each individual app. Well, that's where component libraries come in. You can create a component library where that app can be stored, or that theme can be stored and then imported into the app. And you can import it into multiple apps, and then when you need to make changes, it only needs to be made once. So let's take a look at that. I've already got a component library that I've created for this About Us page. So this About Us information is coming from a component library. And I'm not going to go into details of how to create the component library from scratch. I'll have another video on that. This is mostly on focusing on how to do specifically the modern theme. So be on the lookout for another video here soon that you're going to be able to take advantage of to create it from scratch. I've already got one that I've created. And it's got an About Us page here or screen that I've added. Now what I want to do is I'm going to go over to that, and I'm going to add another component to that component library that I'm going to call like theme engine. All right. So I've got that available here. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to generate a new component. All right. And I'm just going to call that theme engine. Now, what you can do is inside of themes or inside of components, you can create properties. So we know that our Power Apps theme, when I look here, is essentially a record, right? It's a JSON record. So when I come over to my component, I want to add a custom property, and I'm going to call this WD2 tone, and the property type is going to be output. So the concept is that I'm adding the theme to my component, and this is going to be outputting to the app. And for the data type, I'm going to select record, right? So I'm just going to click create. And now I can click on that property here, and I now have access to put that record right there. Now I've already generated the JSON for this. When I take the JSON directly from here that I've output, there's some modifications we need to make to it. So I'm just going to extend the viewing area here. I'm going to select the sample that it provides, and I'm going to paste this in. And I'm just going to say format text, remove some of those blank spaces that it adds for me. And what I've done is I've taken the color values, and you have to just wrap them in some functions here so that it knows exactly what those are. There are other ways to do this. I've just found this to be the simplest. So what I'm doing is I'm taking that exact definition of my theme that I created over here, that Warner Digital 2-color, 2-tone, and I've added it here to this property. Theme engine. I've given it a name. The name is not necessarily going to be useful here, right? But we'll see that in a moment. But I'm going to reference it with this name right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to publish. So it's going to save it, and it's going to publish it. And I'm going to say publish this version. And then I'm going to go over into my Power App, and I'm going to refresh the Power App. So what that's going to do is it's going to go check for a component update. It's going to check to see if there was any changes to my component, which there was, or my component library, because I added another component. And your component library can have multiple components. That's exactly what this is. I've got our About Us component, and I've got our theme engine component. And if you were to open up this Power App after the update had been made, if I had to close it and then reopen it, it would let me know an update had changed or an update had occurred, and they would ask me if I want to update my component. So to do that, you come over to the Insert tab, and you just click this little recycle, right? Check for component library updates. So I'm going to do that, and look, now it's telling me my component library, which is called JCCL, Jedi Council Component Library, has been updated. I'm going to hit Update. And so it's told me selected components were successfully imported. Great. Now, because it is a new component within the library, it's not going to automatically show up right here. right? So we see the About Us. I'm going to come over to Get More Components, and now we see my theme engine is showing up right there for me to import. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to select Import, and now you see it showing up within my collection of controls. I've got the About Us, and I've got Theme Engine. Okay, so that's the first step. We've successfully imported it. We're good to go. I'm going to close that. Now I'm going to come back to my screen, and I'm going to go to my first modern theme home. And you may have a screen that sets up properties or parameters, and there's a number of ways that we could utilize this modern theme. I'm going to show you probably the simplest. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come Insert, and I'm going to insert the theme engine. Okay, so now it's just showing up. It's part of my home screen there, or my first screen. There's nothing really to see because we're really looking to access that output property right here that we've associated, right? When I click that, again, that's the theme colors, right? So we can take advantage of that. But back in the app, now if I go to my app and I go to theme, right, which I was able to utilize here, those are referencing those themes that are included. But now I can come up here and I can say theme engine dot, and now it gives me access to that output property, right? You'll notice that my colors here have gone awry because they're not connecting to any color. But when I go dot and then select WD two-tone, look what happened. It's now connected my buttons, which were connected to the theme, to this new component library based theme, which is pretty cool, right? So if I throw this into play, we know that it's working. And we can see that because when I go specifically to the app and I say theme, I'm able to access it. Now what's cool is that if I click on this button, it doesn't know any different. It doesn't necessarily know that I'm using a custom theme. It's just referencing the app object. And so if I were to go change that, again, it would just simply inherit whatever I've changed it to. So let's take a look at that. I've built one here called Warner Wonka, right? So I like this color scheme. It's got a little bit of a Wonka orange and green to it, which I like the movie. So, you know, we're going to take a look at it. When I hold down app and I hover over my button, put it into play, hover over, you can see that green is going on. So it's got that kind of orange and green feeling, right? But it's not part of my solution. It's not part of my component library solution. But I can change that because I can come over to here. I can add another new custom property, and I'm just going to call this Wonka Warner, and I'm going to set it as an output. I'm going to change it to record, click create, and then I'm going to click it, and I'm going to come in here, and I'm able to now access another color profile. Now I've already pasted it into my clipboard for purposes of simplicity, but I could have easily just come over to my modern theme info, grabbed this, modified it in the format that's needed, and paste it here. I'll say format text, just remove those weird spaces, and we're good to go, right? It's called Warner Wonka. It's now got those colors, and I can access it. So what I'll do is I'll publish, right? I will publish that, and I'll say publish, and it'll save and publish. I'll come back here to my app. I'll go into the Insert tab, and I'll hit refresh, and already it told me, hey, there's an update. Cool. Okay, great. So now that means that I can come back to my app. I can go to the theme, and now I clicked on Warner Wonka, and that's the built-in one, right? So that's the built-in one. But if I were to come up here and say theme engine, now we see Warner Wonka and W2 are actually there. So if you wanted to give your users the ability to create or utilize a couple of themes, you can do that, right? So I'll come back just for purposes of completion. So now I'm not really necessarily using a color theme here, right? That's why we're getting this weird coloring going on. But I can say W2 tone, right? And then when I put this into play, I get the purple and orange, or I can come in and I can go back to the app and I can say Warner Wonka. And now you see it move to the orange primary. When I put it into play, goes to green. And now I could conversely also come in here, and if I needed to just change my colors altogether, but I wanted people to still use the same name, I could do that, right? I could just come in here and change the primary colors for Warner Digital, and then when they get the update here in the app, they don't need to actually change anything. They don't need to change this because they're still using, if I were to change this to Warner Digital two-tone and I decided to go, to maybe a dark purple and a light purple, that's fine. They wouldn't even need to make a change on the app object property at all. Not at all, because it'll automatically just adjust once they've imported the component library. So super cool, super powerful. Hopefully you can see the value in this. Let me know if you have any questions. If you try to implement this yourself. Would love to chat and collaborate with more of you. All right, let's get back to the slides to look at what we can do in the future. Okay, so what's next? What else can we do with these really cool component libraries? Well, think of adding to your component library iconography collections. I'm really passionate about iconography. Animations, get ready for some cool stuff around animations. I'm going to show you some really cool things there. And then there's some enhanced properties if you want to get a little bit more programmatic, add some more formulas and some more advanced things. Now, these are experimental, so you got to take them with what they are, which means that Microsoft could technically just abandon them. But it is good to be aware of. Hopefully, they'll promote them to generally available sooner or later. But again, component libraries, super cool. You can do a lot. Be on the lookout. Excited to share with you my next video. And then we'll also dive into how to create a component library from scratch. I'll show that as well. Thanks, everybody. Take care.